Hi, welcome to Bible for the Busy Woman with me, Melissa Younger. Today we're going to be talking about Matthew 2, verses 13 through 23. So grab your Bible and follow along. Remember, when we see a change in location or person in a narrative, it indicates a new section, and today we're going to be looking at 3 different sections. Today, our story picks up right after the wise men have left Jesus. So Matthew 2:13. Now when they had departed, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, Rise, take the child and his mother, and flee to Egypt, and remain there until I tell you, for Herod is about to search for the child to destroy him. And he rose and took the child and his mother by night, and departed to Egypt, and remained there until the death of Herod. This was to fulfill what the Lord had spoken by the prophet, Out of Egypt I called my son. So here we see that God intervenes to protect his son by telling Joseph about Herod's murderous intentions, and Matthew quotes part of Hosea 11:1, drawing a parallel between the personification of Israel as God's son in the Old Testament and Jesus as God's actual son in the New Testament. And the difference between the two, as the book of Hosea shows, is that Israel was unfaithful to God even though he rescued them from slavery in Egypt. And God tells Joseph to go to Egypt to fulfill this Old Testament prophecy, but also possibly because there would have been some Jews living in the area as a result of the exile. Next, the text takes us back to Herod. So you see that change in both location and person. In verse 16, then Herod, when he saw that he had been tricked by the wise men, he became furious, and he sent and killed all the male children in Bethlehem and in all that region who were 2 years old and under, according to the time that he had ascertained from the wise men. Then was fulfilled what was spoken by the prophet Jeremiah. A voice was heard in Ramah, weeping and loud lamentation, Rachel weeping for her children. She refused to be comforted because they are no more. So this is a horrible story. If you're a mother or you've worked with children, you know how unthinkable this is. I know when I read this story, I wonder why God doesn't just strike Herod down. But we have to trust that God has a plan here. And Matthew quotes Jeremiah 31:15, and that Jeremiah passage talks about the hope of God redeeming Israel and turning their mourning into joy. Yet, at the time that Jeremiah was speaking, God was punishing Israel for their disobedience, and many Israelites were being killed by other nations. So there's a juxtaposition in both texts between the present pain that they were experiencing and a hope in God's promises. And it's horrible that these baby boys were killed, but the reason that they were killed was because Jesus came into the world as the King, and that is something that we should be joyful about. So our text ends with the villain's death and the family's escape if we look at verse 19. Now when Herod died, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt, saying, Rise, take the child and his mother, and go back to the land of Israel, for those who sought to take the child's life are dead. And he rose and took the child and his mother and went to the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus was reigning over Judea in place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. And being warned in a dream, he withdrew to the district of Galilee, and he went and lived in a city called Nazareth, that what was spoken by the prophets might be fulfilled, he shall be called a Nazarene. So we see God sovereignly leading the family to Nazareth, which would have probably been a small farming village. From history, we know that Herod died of a terminal illness, and his will split the kingdom between his 2 sons. So Joseph is afraid of Archelaus because he inherited his father's bloodthirsty and suspicious temperament. But Herod Antipas, who governed Nazareth, was a more sympathetic ruler. So from today's text, we saw that God is sovereign, and though he allows evil men such as Herod to do terrible things in the world, he works behind the scenes, and he guides and he protects. So my question for you today is, what are some times that you can see God protecting and guiding you in your own life? And maybe search your heart for some struggles in that. Sometimes we have trouble seeing how God has worked in our life and seeing what he's doing behind the scenes, because the truth is we don't know on this side of things. But I encourage you to seek the Lord on that and to ask him to help you trust him today. And I hope that's encouraging to you. Join me for my next videos, which come out every Monday. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit the bell to be notified when I post a new video. But let's stay in the Word and seeking the Lord together.